Arvind, it's so great to see you again, though we of course wish it could be in person. You know we've always considered you part of the Informix family, and we're so proud of your role as chairman and CEO of IBM. You've attended many of our conferences in the past, and you were critical to the growth and success of Informix. Can you start by telling us a bit about this history and what it's meant to you and IBM?
Well, Cindy, I think if I remember right, IBM and Informix go back almost 20 years. Not a full 20, but almost 20. Maybe we're 2 years short. I do look forward to celebrating that double-decade anniversary as well. Look, I remember coming out to the IIUG conferences, mid-2000s, late 2000s, and it holds a really special place in my heart. Well, one of the reasons is it's always wonderful to interact with technologies that touch the lives of hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. I think I used to make the phrase, many of the lay people may not know Informix, but it's actually the fabric around them. Whether we think of telecom systems, whether we think of voice over IP, we think of 911 systems. And you know, as you think through all those things, Informix often lay at the heart of all of those. And I used to, I think, joke with you that I don't even know why, but it often lay as the fabric inside switches and routers. And as the last year and a half has shown us, connectivity is critical. So it's actually that magic of having something which scaled, which works, which knows how to do a client-server implementation, but it doesn't take a lot of administrative overhead. And we know that some of our large retail clients run tens of thousands of instances with, I think it's debatable, 0 or 1 or 2 people. And that is just, I think, so great in terms of the value it brings the world. But look, data and databases are at the heart of modern technology. And I think Informix has shown the path for what a great database can be. And that's why it holds such a special place in my heart and in IBM's.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree more with you on that statement. Well, the pandemic has upended every industry, including IT. Can you talk about the dramatic impact COVID-19 is having on your clients and on your own company as well?
Yeah. So, Cindy, I always begin with a little bit of a personal story. So, I was asked by the board to take this role on January 30th, 2020. And, you know, in hindsight, we should have known maybe that the pandemic is coming, but there was no discussion of it in January, at least in the West. The week prior to me being named, I was in Davos in Switzerland. And with the global collection of people there, you would have thought there'd be some hallway whisper. There was nothing. I think it was radio silence on this topic. By the middle of February, there were some whispers. You know, is something happening in Wuhan? Do we need to worry about it here? And there was a lot of, I think, head in the sand, maybe but by the end of February, it was obvious something was happening. Now, what was the impact on all of us? First, let me reflect on our employees, our clients, our partners, because safety became paramount. You know, health does tend to override almost all other considerations. And so how do you keep people safe? But you got to keep them productive. I don't want to have no business and no clients at the end of it, because then there's no income. So you got to worry about both those things. And that became the whole task through March. And maybe we were lucky, maybe we were prepared, but I think I'll call it the smartness. Because of being a global company, we were ready to go remote pretty quickly over a weekend. I remember late February or maybe first week of March, I asked our internal IT team, yes, we do IT for other people, but I asked our internal IT team and I saw them gulp. I said, this Saturday, I want you to test 200,000 people on WebEx and 300,000 people on Slack. And I want us on our internal VPNs. And I want you to pretend that nobody's in the office. Are we sure we have enough capacity? And the reality is nobody knew, because while you plan for things, you plan for one country or one nation or one continent, not the whole world. And so we did that. By the way, we came through with flying colors. And that gave us a lot of confidence that we could get through this. And that also gave us the experience and the learnings that we could go to all our clients and help them through it. Now, we do work for other companies, as you know. So a big part of it is other companies would suffer if our people couldn't get access to systems and to all of their work tools. So we very quickly, literally over a weekend, had to go to that mode. Then you got to worry about all the things people talk about today. Well, what about cybersecurity? What about ransomware? How do you make sure the people coming in from their home connections are as safe as they were from other places? And so we had to go worry about all those things. But it also became a way for us to reassure our clients that we can continue to provide them. I think our actual number, I know it's not perfect, we measured it. I think we met 98% of all SLAs, even through that period. Now, let me put the pandemic, meaning the health aspect and the remote aspect aside. When you get into all this, it creates the issues we are seeing today. Because the real crisis, the one that's going to impact us for years, is the economic crisis associated with it. As people begin to worry about the pandemic, factories shut down. Look, when factories shut down, those companies make less money, but those goods don't come into the economy. So overall, there's an impact on GDP. When restaurants shut down, the workers don't make money. I worry about that much more than the fact that people can't entertain themselves. Okay, entertainment is nice, but in the end, it's a livelihood for millions of people. The food service industry begins to slow down. That means there's a reverse pressure on prices, and farmers could make less. So there's a big impact. I think we don't fully understand it, and it goes in both directions. So I'm not going to pretend, I'm not an economist, I'm an engineer. So I tend to think of things in terms of supply and demand, but from how do you manufacture it, how do you get it to people, how do you distribute it, how do you make it digital? And this yin-yang across, well, when supplies go down, is that a price increase, or there's an asset uplift and everybody benefits? Or is it that the demand goes down forever and that's a different beast? And I think that the next 2 years is going to tell us that. In the supply chain, clearly in automobiles, for those of you who are, I'll say, Western-based, whether Western Europe or North America, there's clearly a shortage in automobiles. So the supply prices there is quite real. I think it'll actually go beyond new cars into prices for used cars. We know in housing and construction, there is a crisis because you can't get enough materials and you can't get enough skilled labor. Now, in other areas, maybe there's going to be a surplus, and maybe there's going to be people looking for roles. So there's this mixture across the economy, not to even talk about hybrid work. It's a chance to maybe get away from what we invented in the 1750s, I'll call it, when the industrial age first came to be. I kind of jokingly say, at that time, the factory would blow a big whistle or a siren. Everybody lived within a couple of miles and you'd go to work. By the way, a 2-mile walk is 40 minutes. So you get to work, you work whatever you did, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours, and then you went back home. Well, okay, we replaced that drudgery with commutes and trains and 30 or 40-minute drives as opposed to 40-minute walks. Same difference. Maybe it's time to rethink, can we make it more hybrid? Do we have staggered working hours? Are people only in some of the time, not all the time? I do agree being in some of the time is important to build team spirits, trust, serendipity, creativity, collaboration, but maybe one doesn't need to be in all the time. We'll see. This will all play out over the next few years. It won't be a few months, it'll be a few years.
Definitely, we will see. So how is IBM helping its clients to navigate this new normal? And can you provide some specific examples?
Yeah, Cindy, it's a great question. Look, I think there are two tectonic forces. So in the backdrop of the pandemic, going remote, technology being really important for what we do, automation helping us get through this crisis. There's two tectonic forces that are working. One is around cloud technologies, and specifically hybrid cloud, and the second is around artificial intelligence. So when we think of our large clients, are they going to use one or multiple public clouds? I think most are going to use multiple. Nobody likes to get locked into only one. Then they're all going to use something on premise. They'll use other as a service properties. That's what we call hybrid. And if that's the environment, that's not a way stop. That's really the end destination. So how do we help people get there? So when I think about a Verizon and how they begin to use hybrid cloud technologies to really have a flexible network so they can worry about where the load is and react to it in milliseconds, not days, I think that's a great example of the use of these hybrid platforms. If I think of how Siemens wants to go in and really help automate factories, and they work with us then to say, okay, I don't want to do a rip and replace. Can I come in and add some function, but really help with factory automation? I think that's a great example. Or if you think about how Bank of America wants to use a cloud that is regulated, that is secure, but that allows them to be comfortable about the third and fourth party risk, and they begin to do things. I think these are great examples on the hybrid side. When we think about artificial intelligence, I always go to, I think I might have said this at an IIUG conference about 10 years ago. Look, data is exploding. We used to talk about data doubling every year and a half. I don't even know whether it's that or it's a few days or a few months now. If I look at all of the unstructured data people put out there, and it was 45 zettabytes, now it's 175 zettabytes, and it's going to keep going. Data is not going to stop. The only technology we know which can work on data of that scale is artificial intelligence. So then if I think about, I think of a client like CVS, really important because they helped do COVID vaccinations. And they got worried, wait, 70 million people call me. I don't maybe have enough people in my call center. So leveraging Watson Assistant, we helped deflect over 70% of the calls, and hopefully we'll get better. By the way, I think that was over 10 million calls, maybe 17 million in 3 months. And by the way, I think people were happy because, AI assistants don't get cranky, don't get angry, keep their patience. By the way, they can keep evolving, they can keep learning. So they get better and better. By the way, that lets people worry about actually giving the vaccinations and other things as opposed to just handling the phone calls. And it really helped scale. And another great example is from a great partner, Ernst & Young, who leverages our Watson technologies in their M&A practice so that people can do due diligence on targets a lot more effectively and a lot quicker, which helps them grow their business and helps their clients get happier. So hopefully that gives you a sense of why I'm so excited about what both cloud and artificial intelligence can do for our clients.
Absolutely. That's great. You have led a series of bold strategic moves, including the acquisition of Red Hat and the spin-off of the managed infrastructure services business into a separate company, Crindle. What is the strategy behind these moves, and how do they position IBM to better serve its clients in the future?
So, Cindy, great question. So it really goes back to my description of a hybrid cloud. So multiple public clouds and on-premise, aka private, as a service. But what is it that our clients want to do? Our clients all want to modernize. They all want to have flexible applications. They all want to scale. As you think about that, the language becomes much more of an application-centric language and going down that path. Infrastructure is really, really important, but it's a separate decision from your application environments. So when you go down that path, then you say, well, is it best served to have it all in one company, or should the managed infrastructure be in a separate company? And I think to optimize the service you provide, the innovation you do, what your capital structure is best served by having it in two separate companies. Now, you needed some evidence that our thesis is true. So acquiring Red Hat and seeing the growth of those technologies, seeing the adoption of Red Hat by our clients. By the way, as the Informix base knows, I think a lot of Informix runs on Linux as well. it tells you that that is going to be the de facto operating system of the future. So the acquisition of Red Hat gave us the evidence that allowed us to go down the path of spinning out Kyndryl. That allows two companies that are both optimized for what they do. And that always is a better answer for clients and for investors. And by the way, then for employees. So that's kind of what we are doing there. And it goes back to fulfilling the strategy on both hybrid cloud and artificial intelligence.
Great. So where does Informix fit into that strategy and IBM's revised portfolio?
So Cindy, if I look at it, I fundamentally believe that relational databases are here always. Look, in technology, we know things sometimes get replaced, but that's only when they don't provide value. By and large, other technologies come along and are additive to what we have. So I ask everybody in the audience, are we going to not do payments? Are we not going to do the asset properties that databases do? Do we sometimes need consistency to know there's only one answer and not a maybe answer? Well, if the answer to all those questions is yes, then a relational database like Informix is critical for the future. Now, as we go down the path of thinking about it, I think that then you say, what is the innovation that is coming? And I think if I remember right, the last release of Informix was in 2019. And so if I look at that and say, okay, that was the last major release. Yes, I know there's lots of dot releases and patches and things since then. But then you say, okay, is it time maybe next year, maybe early in the following year to have a new release that will bring out yet more innovation? I think that that is what energizes us, right? We all live to add more value, to help innovate, to make things even less complex. And Informix is pretty simple to manage. As I sort of said in my opening, I don't know any other database that can have 10,000 kind of spokes hanging off of it and still be managed really, really easily. I think that's a remarkable aspect and it's unique. I don't think there's anything else like it in the world. So if I look at it, the collaboration between the users, the community, IIUG, the development teams, bringing it out to clients, innovating on it, hey, that's exciting because I'm convinced this Informix is going to outlive all of us. So that is, I think I can make that as a safe prediction.
Well, great. I'm sure everybody in the Informix community wants to believe that as well. You know how much of fanatics we are about our product that we love. So we really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us.
It's my pleasure, Cindy, and good luck to all of you and have a great, great user group.
Thank you, Arvind.